All right. Welcome everyone to the second episode of Second City Saints. Things were a little bit hectic that we did not make videos on Monday. Steve, will you tell us why? Because I did read it up on it and I saw what you meant, but tell everybody why we weren't able to put an episode
Oh
on
yeah,
Monday.
dude. The weather, what you call it, summer? It's called seasons. Yeah, red hot humidity here in Chicago. Knock out the power. I know my parents lost power or lost at least their landline, if you want to call it that, their internet connection. Same here. So yeah, we had to delay it a day or two. So we met yesterday, and we're back on track. So, but yeah, man, it's heating up all across the United States. I think you're used to that being in Houston, but man, when those thunderstorms roll through here in Chicago, it's lights out for sure.
So were those storms caused by what was left over from the hurricane? Because I know it was going up
I,
that way, so I don't know if it was caused by that.
I'm not too sure about that, man. I just know that Chicago gets some what are microburst, and I there was a couple tornadoes that actually touched down in the city of Chicago, which is kind of an unusual. But when a front just sits, and I'm sure it's because of a front up the eastern seaboard, that's
Hmm.
when you'll have storms that'll just sit, and it becomes real humid, and then when that happens, that you're in for a fucking shit show. So yeah, you lose power. You, you're going back to the 90s, so to speak, with no electricity at all.
Yeah. Well, I guess now that we got that out of the way, let's start with our first topic. Obviously, the big thing that happened during the weekend, that we couldn't speak to was the assassination attempt. I thought, I'll be honest, when I first saw it, it was like some kind of a joke because I'm here watching and I see it. I'm like, there's no way. I saw it on YouTube while I was just messing around. And I'm like, what? No way. So I just go switch to the news and I see what happened. I see the video and I was still in disbelief. Like, I was like, there's no way. Like, I had to watch it twice. And I'm like, this seriously happened, right? Because um, I get it, like this is the world we live in, but like everyone always says like America is, we're organized and all that, and although with the way things are, I shouldn't be surprised either. But I still like it was a bit of a shock. I mean, what did you think about it?
Yeah, definitely not surprised, but I mean, yeah, it just seems all a coincidence. Uh, what, no matter what side you're on, it just seems
Hmm.
like too many coincidences for it not to be some type of coordinated event. You blame it on a lone wolf. Yeah, right. Not happening. There's no way that um, so many people are just seeing a guy minutes, hours, whatever you want to call it, before the actual shooting, and then to just allow that dude to get off six shots at a high level, politician, former president, just doesn't happen. So yeah, just watching it unfold on Saturday, and I've watched it like I'd say 100 times, whether it was on my phone or whether it was on getting back to the house when we were in Kentucky, just kind of chilling on the couch and watching it over and over and over and over again. It just
Hmm.
seems so surreal that one, what the hell, man? If it was a bullet, like how did that not hit its target? Like how do you hit an ear and for you to turn just at the right time and just boom, and then it just the events unfolded, right? It seemed all too weird. The crowd in the background for me was just in disbelief almost, cheering, disbelief, and then it's like, oh shit, I think this is actually going down, which is kind of like where we're at in society for me, anyways. You're like, well, how do I react to anything these days? And so,
Yeah.
then them escorting him off the stage, and then just the Secret Service, like, who the hell were those people? Like, were those real Secret Service? I mean, I don't know,
Right.
man. It just seemed so so crazy. You couldn't really describe it as it unfolded, but unfortunately, one person or maybe one or two, three people died. Some stories coming out of as a result, and then it was just like, damn, like where do we go from here? Everybody's putting out their, hey, this is not the way that we do politics in the United States, not how we handle, election years. But I mean, anybody who's a politician is going to kind of throw that out there because they don't want it to happen to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, like for me, just the entire situation, it does take like some thought. Like what happened? Where was the breakdown, right? Because thankfully, with the time that we've taken to come up with the video or to record, I should say, there is more information, right? So we know that the parents notified ahead of time by almost, I believe it was 3 hours, right? Uh, so how did that get past it, right? Then there was that
Right.
deputy who saw it, and yet he was unarmed. And I get it, like that's not these kind of things, these kind of events. That's not something that they do. But like, why would you not be armed to begin with? And then at that point,
Right.
like how do you not have a walkie-talkie to like say, hey, look, shooter, shooter? Like I don't know. I'm just thinking like there's just a breakdown of everything, right?
Right.
Now as far as him, uh, he got lucky. Like he just happened to turn the head the right way, right? Like I saw the wireframe video, and yeah, dude, like that's pure freaking luck by but I mean, essentially that was millimeters. It was stroke of luck, hand of God, whatever you want to call it. He
Yeah.
got lucky. I mean, he really got lucky because after watching that, my first thought was, um, and this is something that you know here in America you don't see, but you do see this in third world countries, and not just third world countries. I mean, in the past, in history, assassinations causes war, whether it's
Right.
international war or civil war. And when you have a figure like him, whether he's divisive or not, regardless, he's leading a group of large amount of individuals. And if those individuals feel that the law is being played against them, right, and then all of a sudden you kill their leading spokesman, bro, that I mean that could start a fire within the country that we just don't have the capability of shutting off immediately, and
Right.
that's where my thought process is, because I feel like you know and this is where, like, the days after, like the couple of days after, you see Biden saying, hey, we need to tone things down, but like it or not, Biden and the left and the progressives are the ones that are stoking flames to begin with. You can't discount what you've been saying for years. You've been calling this, the right a threat to democracy, and
Right.
they're trying to ban things, all these things, right? And it's like now you're telling everybody to cool down, and it's like it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, because all you
Right.
have to
It's
do.
it's not a faucet easily to turn off for sure.
Sure, sure. I mean, it's a simple analogy, right? Someone comes and they slap you. Uh, your first instinct is to slap them back. It's not for someone to come and tell you, calm down. No, I got slapped. I need to slap that person back, right? And that's how wars start, right? Because it's a tit
Right.
for tat at that point. And that's where my thought was worried, right? Then started coming all the other stuff, right? Like you said, uh, this guy, he's by himself, he's a kid, he's with a gun. People are telling these guys even 4 minutes ahead, there's a dude on the roof on the gun. And then all of a sudden,
Right.
the excuse from the Secret Service is, well, it was a really slow roof. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
And it's
No.
like, what?
Right, no doubt about it. Yeah, you should have had someone on it, not in it. You should have been covering all your bases. Now, everybody's trying to pass the buck, but Secret Service, director says the buck stops with me, but well then where does that leave you? And, you know, for everybody else that came into interaction with the guy, and now what? Yeah, it's all hindsight. So it's like,
Yeah,
well, you're just lucky, you know, you're not lucky. You're just, I mean, events unfolded again, and then, one person died that wasn't the former president. And if it did, it would have probably lit a fire under some more, groups of people that would have probably brought it to civil war. Good thing
yeah,
it didn't, because then it would have been really bad, and then this is just the beginning of what's likely to happen here coming up. You had the RNC this week, and then going into the DNC in Chicago, if it wasn't going to be already a shit show, or where it's just going to be, who knows what's going to go down day to day,
Yeah.
it's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts. They're already calling for, they're canceling Chicago police officers' days off. You know,
Yeah.
they're pulling everybody in, everybody, all hands on deck, so to speak. And if it's
Yeah.
canceling days off, which already these officers are already shorthand, they're tired, they're exhausted, and now they have to deal with this. Now they have to deal with this on top of everything that happened over the weekend. It's going to be
Sure.
nuts here in Chicago for sure.
Yeah. With the DNC being in Chicago, right? And them not giving the permits to have the protests near, it's like that. I see that as like, oh man, that's another. First of all, let me just lay it out, right? Brandon Johnson sucks,
Right.
right? I don't understand how
He's
anybody
brutal.
with half a brain could have voted for that man. Like, I just don't understand it.
Did not.
Um, well, I mean, it's a shame, right? Like like I said, at work, there was somebody who told me that her boyfriend helped run was in Brandon Johnson's campaign, and I was like, Brandon Johnson
Really?
sucks, and she's like, no, but he's not as bad. I go, don't tell me that. Don't tell me
No,
that. I go,
don't say
because
that.
just because I don't live in Chicago anymore does not mean I don't read the news, and I still don't have friends there. I go, Brandon Johnson sucks, and your boyfriend sucks for helping him get elected. I go,
Right.
because that man is destroying that city. And he's so bad. I
Single
don't know if you saw.
handedly.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw. Like, um, he's actually wanting. I don't know if he did. I was trying to look it up, but he wants the statue of George Washington removed from
Right.
the front of his office, and it's like, bro, like
Dude,
whatever.
I saw that. I jumped on Twitter. I was like, you know what? Let me throw this up. You're not moving that statue. So
I
it
mean,
must have
it's
been like
ridiculous.
it must have leaked out that he was going to remove the statue, and then
Hmm.
immediately he changed his mind because I was like, it happened like yeah, as of yesterday, 14 hours ago, and then in that 13th hour, it was like it nixes the idea of moving the George Washington statue. He must have gotten so much backlash from that potential decision that it would not have been good for him if he moved that. In replacement of what? Like, dude, what were
Hmm.
you going to put there in place of our first president? And I don't care what what he did in as a first president. That's a founder of our fucking country, man. Like,
All
come
right.
on now.
Well,
It would
my
have been
take
bad.
is my take from just seeing how he is. He's spineless, right? So Brandon Johnson is
Right.
spineless. He's way out of his element. He is not prepared to be in that position. The man hates accountability. He he you know he avoids any sort of responsibility of anyone from his side. Is basically what I see. The sooner they get him out of, if they do the recall, man, I hope they do. But Chicago needs to wake up. Honestly, like, the people need to
Right.
wake up. They need to realize that their voting patterns do not work. It has not worked for the longest time, and that's why the state is in chaos. I know we went kind of off on a tangent there,
Yeah, no doubt.
um, but I just couldn't keep it in any once we started talking about the DNC.
I can get
So
into
yeah,
that.
my worries now with the DNC again is what's going to happen with the protests, right? Because they're going to be far away. The reality is, Chicago's going to have to prepare for violence, right? Because the
Right.
reality is we need to see what has transpired with the groups that are going to protest, what the history has been, right? And they've all been violent. They've always been breaking cars and things. And this is something that's been going on since 2020. So this is not anything new. They should expect the worst. And it's a shame that we're at this point that we know that these groups are going to come and destroy businesses, and yet the Democrats, for some reason, will not do what they have to do to put their foot down.
Right, right. No, for sure. I'll be nowhere near the McCormick place if that's where it's going to be. I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to be. And yeah, and I'm maybe 2 miles away from it. So
Hmm.
if you have a car, what's that saying? Hide your kids, hide your
Yeah.
husband, all that. Put them inside and don't come out because it's going to be it's going to be Antifa all day long, and then
Yep.
anybody anti anything is going to be out there. And then, I mean, talk about Buckingham Fountain downtown already being dyed red. I mean, that's just that's peanuts of what you're going to see when it comes to DNC time. But yeah, no, as a result of what we've already seen this past weekend for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a shame because it's like I just don't understand how people can't get things through their head that guess what, we tried this, it's not working. We need to either go back to the old ways or try something new, right? And the way I see it is a perfect example is New York, right? If you watch all these movies from New York in the 70s and 80s that you watch on like YouTube, bro, it was a disaster. Then Giuliani came in. Yeah, people said he was hard, but guess what? He cleaned the city up. Like he
Right,
cleaned it up.
right,
I mean, all you have to do is look at photos of New York Times from the 80s to what it is today, and it's like night and day. Bro, I
right,
mean, what was it? I'm New York Times. I'm sorry. Times Square used to be filled with like porno stores and theaters and all that stuff, and
right.
now today it should be a family place, right? With the exception of what's of the crime that's going on now. But I mean, overall, he cleaned it up,
Right.
and we just need to go back to those kind of policies. I don't know. That's just what worries me.
Yeah, I mean, as a result, I mean, I listen to what Johnson has to say, and it drives me insane. He basically blames it on a couple of things. One, we've been down that road. As a result, you have multi-million-dollar lawsuits that have been pending for decades, and now having to basically cut into the budget. And then
Hmm.
he then turns around and says it's as a result of those policies that it's a disinvestment in the communities here. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, where are you going to put your foot down? Like, you can't have your transportation systems. You can't leave your car outside and then come out and your car's gone. I mean, there's just things that where you have to say enough is enough, and yeah, you have to support your CPD. Now you have your CPD saying the same thing you're saying, echoing the same policies that you're trying to do, but they know with the boots on the ground, they know that shit don't work. So
Yeah,
it's just it's a bad situation because then you have the top looking down, and then that's where the morale of the PD just says, you know what, this is a shit show. I'm just here for a paycheck. I'm not getting out of my car. I'm not chasing
right.
down no criminal. And then I know if even if I do bring him to the court system, they're just going to be let out the very next day or the day after. That's Cook County for you. And so
Yeah,
not only a city thing, it's a county deal where even the state's attorney is like, just we're not going to take him to justice. Just let him out
yeah,
on a bail system that doesn't exist anymore. It's just, hey, when we mail you that letter or that subpoena, make sure you show up to court. They never show up to court, and by the time they need to show up to court, they've already committed a second or third crime. So,
yeah.
but that's where we're at with everything with the city. So,
Yeah. Well, I guess moving on to the next topic. Um, you know, something that surprised me today was just reading about the interview that Biden uh, put out, right, where he says basically that if the doctors say he should step aside, he will under medical if there's a medical condition that stops him. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, there's a tweet out saying that he's got COVID, right? Now, I'm not necessarily saying that he will move, but it's a strong indication, right? Maybe it's a way for them to kind of test the waters because ever since that debate, a lot of the Democrats have been pushing for him to step aside, and this might be what they're looking for, right? He says he's going to stay. Man, it could be just a little pretend type of situation where he's like gonna probably hold off for another week, but then maybe just say, well, yeah, it's hitting me hard. I'm gonna step aside, and then they pick somebody new. But I mean, that's what I'm thinking. What's going through your head?
I mean, at the end of the day, if he's not able to do his job, I mean, he's going to have to maybe go in a different direction, or even the Democratic Party. I mean, I just hear a lot of words when when I'm reading a headline and then I go into an actual article. It's like it's a lot of it's a lot of straight talk, and then when you get into the actual articles itself, it's a lot of mixed message and signaling. It's signaling, it's insinuating, it's but then it leads to where there's smoke, there's fire. It's like typically when a politician has your back, they'll say, "Listen, he's our candidate." It's like back in the early mid 2010s when the Bears were having a quarterback situation. They were like always throwing Rex Grossman under the bus. Is he your quarterback? Is he your quarterback? The coach at the time was like, "He is our quarterback." He would always have to go out of his way to say that. In this
Hmm.
case, you're not. You're not saying, "Okay, our president is the DNC candidate." And I think up until you get to that point where now they push it off to August to actually make him the DNC candidate, you're going to hear in the in between. You're going to hear where he's not necessarily officially the candidate. Trump wasn't necessarily the RNC candidate up until this past weekend, or past week, Monday, Tuesday. He was officially nominated the RNC candidate. You'll see something similar to that to the DNC until you get to that point. And even after that, now with the whole health thing, it's like, and it's always been a health thing with this guy. Like,
Yeah.
prop him up on a stick and bring him in, and then that's it. Because I think the thinking is there is like, if you bring Biden to, or any DNC, it's going to always be the vote is, I don't want to necessarily vote for Trump, or I don't want to vote for a far right candidate that like the whole Project 2025 thing started to abruptly show up, and it was just like, okay, well, is that necessarily everything that a Republican's voting for? Maybe not. I don't think so. I think it's a mixed
Yeah.
message there. So the same thing with Biden. I mean, you just prop him up and then that's it. I think that's what the Democrats are hoping for, is that people hate Trump enough, or they'll hate MAGA enough to say, okay, well, they're just going to vote Democrat. That's why you see such a large a good number of people in the middle where, Kennedy looks good. Damn, I just 10, 12, 10, 11, 12% of votes are swaying
Yeah.
independent this time around. It's kind of like last time I saw that was Ross fucking Perot. Dude, that was a long time ago where we saw an independent candidate where he's like up there with his graphs and he's just like, well, and he's talking all numbers, and it's just like, dude, well, maybe
Hmm.
we need to go in this direction. Something very similar this time around. This guy is like a man of the people, but even he's got dirt, and people are bringing that shit up. So it's just who are you gonna vote for at the end of the day? It's like, I don't even fucking know. Like,
Yeah.
what do you got? And I think that's where a lot of people, especially the silent voter, or the person that's not willing to jump into the spotlight for the sake of a vote or sake of a party, where is that vote going to go? And I think at the end of the day, you're going to see that vote and what's actually going to show up in the polls, and what's actually going to show up in some of these states. Like, I was looking at some of these in between states. So you got Michigan, you got fucking Georgia, Pennsylvania. It's the same states over and over again, split
Yeah.
that right down the middle, and it's all going to come down to the independent voter. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to an event, and who the fuck knows? It's going to be decided by like 10,000 less votes in those particular states. So, I
Yeah.
mean, those are my thoughts on it. I mean, you slice the bread however you want to. It's going to be a wild time between now and November.
Yeah. I think right now their biggest concern should really be is if he does decide to step down, who is going to replace him, right? Because
Yeah,
there's all these names being thrown out, but really, I mean, they're in a tough spot because I'll be honest, I mean, they're gonna have to suck it up, and
yeah.
it's really gonna be
Well,
Kamala Harris, like because
oh
if
my
you
God,
overstep her
she's the
with
worst.
anything else, oh, I don't get me wrong, I don't think she's prepared in any
Yeah,
way
not at all.
for the office, but um, I just think that they're put in a corner because they're gonna look bad if they grab anybody
Right.
else, right? I keep hearing Newsom, but all one has to do is just look at California and the disaster with
Yeah,
their budget
yeah.
that's been going on lately, right? Anybody with half a brain can see what's going on. There's a reason so many
Right,
companies are leaving. There's a reason so many people are leaving that state, and it's a beautiful state. I mean, you live there.
right,
I visited there. It's a pretty cool place. I mean, I'll be honest. I was like, holy crap, I would definitely move here. It's just
right.
all the policies, right? So I don't think he's a good
Crazy
fit.
policies, bro.
You know, people sometimes will bring up Michelle Obama's name, but uh, we
I think
shouldn't.
they're done.
I mean, she says she doesn't want to, and I think that's bad for the country. Really, dynasties are bad for the country. Just to put someone there because of name recognition, and really, Obama on his second term was not a great president, right? He is the one who actually started the whole wedge of like the division that we currently see today, more than anything else, because it started under his that period after he got reelected. Um,
Got it.
Now, as far as like the independent voters, I like that's why I like I said in the last episode, I do things from a logical standpoint. I have no loyalty to either party. I go for whatever's best
Right.
for the country, right? You mentioned the 2025. I see that as just like a boogeyman thing that the Democrats are pushing out as a way to put fear into people, like saying they're going to implement, because it makes no sense. Like one of the things
Right.
in Project 2025 that I've heard is that they're going to put God back into schools, but that's impossible because that's just the separation of church and state will not allow
Right.
that. So it's just ridiculous
Right.
things like that. That's why I feel like yes, it's a think tank, but I mean, what kind of power does what kind of power do they actually have to actually implement those kind of policies, right?
Right.
My biggest fear right now is, you know, if we vote Democrat, we're gonna it's a sinking ship, right? The country sucks right now. The economy is not doing great. Everything's going to down the drain. But my other fear is if we vote Republican, we're gonna swing back too much the other way, right? And
Right.
and my one of my fears from there is isolation, right? Because a lot of Republicans are talking about, oh well, we shouldn't be giving money to this and we shouldn't be doing that. Um, well, that's also a mistake, and that's a huge mistake, and that's actually one of the little side episodes I'm working on my own, which is about isolation and why it hasn't worked in the past, other unless you're in a dictatorship, and why we shouldn't do that, right? But that's neither here nor there. I was just simply mentioning just the pros, or I should say the cons of both parties, right? The independent voter, again, should use their power to see what's going on, all right? Like the truth matters, facts matter. Whether it hurts someone's feelings should not be something we consider with what we do. Um, well, it looks like we lost Steven. So I'm just going to continue the rest of the episode myself until he joins in. Now, the last topic for tonight is about something that I read earlier today, right? So it seems that there's a report, a rumor, that Axios, there's an editor in Axios who does not want to use a photo of Trump holding up his fist as a way of not giving him free publicity. And as so, like, I care deeply about, you know, the media being fair and true, right? Which is a very difficult thing to do in today's day and age, right? We all know that a lot of them have, the vast majority have some sort of bias, right? News Nation uh, tends to be a little bit more even handed, right? Whereas you've got Fox, CNN, MSNBC, what's the other one? One America News, right? So you've got everybody, they're just shooting things out there that is for their side. Um, our job as citizens is to get the best information that we can from the greatest amount of places, filter them through to try and get to the truth. Um, Usually in the past, from what I've read and seen on documentaries, this was a job. This was the actual job of the media. They would just present the facts. But unfortunately, at some point throughout time, political correctness came in, and then we started to worry about people's feelings, and then that started to distort the truth. Right? We started hiding some facts. We started pushing different narratives, and that has allowed for voices to give out a lot of the misinformation, disinformation that we hear today. So, just to get back on topic, right? I heard the rumor about the Axios editor not wanting to use that thing. I actually wrote to Axios. I asked them if they would let me know if it's true that they did have an editor that had mentioned this, especially considering that unfortunately it happened, and it is an important moment in American history. Like this is a moment that will be in history books from here on out, and whether you like it or not, it's something that needs to be presented. And it's really really troublesome when it's a news organization, and especially one with the name of Axios, right? Because if you look at their Wikipedia, oh, there we go. You're back.
Back.
All right. Well, I was just talking about the third topic, um,
Yeah.
and I was mentioning how there's the rumor that Axios, editor in Axios, did not want to use the picture with Trump with his fist up in the air.
Right.
And I was just telling everybody that I actually wrote to Axios.
Right.
I asked them a question to see if they would like to mention if that rumor is true, and
Right.
if it is true, what editorial decision is has been taken, right? Because if you're claiming to be a news organization and you're going to use the name Axios, which according to Wikipedia means worthy in Greek, then to be worthy of being news providers, you need to put out the truth, whether you like it or not, of the point of view that you like.
Right.
And it's kind of disingenuous for them to use that name and then all of a sudden say, well, we don't want to give him free press. But it's an important moment in history. It's a moment that happened. I'm sure Trump instantly thought of putting up his fist, but you got to remember, I mean, the dude almost got killed, and he has the adrenaline pumping, and either people are going to cower or they're going to react in certain ways, and that was his way of reacting, right? And people were that you had photographers and media to take those images, and they should be out there. It's my thing is, it's a shame that news organizations are politicized to the point that they don't want to use a certain image because it might help a candidate that they don't espouse, when that's not what they went to school for, right? From my understanding, I didn't study journalism, but man, if your job is to present the news, you should present the news with facts, with the truth, and take your spin out of it. I mean, that's how I feel. What say
Right.
you?
No doubt. If whatever the facts are, and example, I've been watching CNN for what the last 4 years. I Now it's like you don't know what the hell's going on over there. It's always been a question as to whether they're legitimate news or not, and at the end of the day, you really just you don't know. So it's like I just stopped watching the news altogether, especially after having to deal with that crap through COVID and whatnot. And it just seems like, anytime it went to a commercial, it was like, and brought to you by Pfizer, brought
Yeah,
to you by some pharmaceutical company. And it was just like, Jesus, can you guys make it any more obvious that you like you're being paid off, and then
yeah,
all the lawsuits post COVID, end up happening, and then all these guys end up going their own way because it's for whatever their own reasons. And
sure,
you look at Tucker, you look at some of these guys, Lemon, that decided to take a payday instead of actually reporting legitimate news. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, you go your own way, and if you don't like it, yeah, it's an employer. Go find another job, but you just never know. Like I was talking to my mom about, like, she's just pissed at CNN. I'm like, it's just a company. It's a for-profit company. If it was a
yeah,
nonprofit, then I'd be like, okay, well, what the hell's going on there? But you got to understand these news companies, these news stations need to make money at the end of the day. And if they're not making money, if they're not driving, an audience or views or hits or whatever you wanted to call it, it's gonna be what's the bottom line, and you got
yeah,
to cut jobs. You got to find new talent. You got to find what's hot so that you can get those numbers back up. But
yeah.
those are my thoughts. I mean, really, I don't look to the news for all of the truth. It's partial. A lot of times, a lot of these reporters are trying to break the news first and be the first to report something. And at the end of the day, it's like it's not the full picture. So that's what
Sure.
I kind of look at the news with perspective. Yeah, you're trying to give us some information, but at the same time, how much of it's true? Probably not. Like I think the first thing that came out on Saturday about going back to, the shooting was like, who was it? Who took the shots? And it ended up being like a report of Antifa. And I'm like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
how did they break this news so fast? I mean, like, dude, the guy just fired off the shots like 10 minutes ago, and what do you have, a database to kind of like compare? What are you gonna run, a DNA sample? Was the guy like had a sign on his head, "My name is"? I'm like, dude, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the truth. So I mean, a lot of what you see on the internet is just like, damn, take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, you got to let time pass, and there's so much more that needs to be unveiled. You can look at a news source, but going back to what you said, trying to bury something, that's bullshit. That should frustrate a lot of people. But at the same time, again, I'm not surprised by that's something that they're trying, that would be tried,
Yeah.
to bury truth or to bury details and try to like pass an event that it's a pretty significant event if you think about it. We haven't had an assassination attempt in about 30 years, 30, 40 years. And for that to go down, that should be like studied, not buried, in my
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised because yes, officially, there hasn't been an assassination attempt on an individual, but you also have to remember what was it, a couple of years ago, like 2 3 years ago, I believe, it escapes my memory right now, the baseball game where that crazy Democrat started shooting up, where like there was a lot of Republicans out there and he
Okay.
killed somebody, right? Like you heard that for like a few days and then all of a sudden it disappeared, right? So I stopped kind of trusting CNN from a long time ago, even
Yeah.
way back. Like I could see what was going on.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was. It was something when Hillary Clinton was still around, and it was I believe it was the servers, and Fox was
Oh
bringing
yeah.
it up, but you didn't hear a word of it on CNN, like nothing. And during that
Yeah.
period, I was watching CNN mostly because I liked the format, but that's when it struck me, and I'm like, these guys are hiding this because this is important, right? Like she screwed up on that, and these guys are not reporting it. And then over time is when I realized, like, yeah, they're not as because I didn't think they were that far. Like MSNBC is a joke at this point. I don't
Right.
understand how it even calls itself a news network. I think what's this thing, TMZ, right? TMZ, the gossip play. I think those guys are more accurate with their reporting than MSNBC, right?
Right.
It's a total joke there. And part of me wishes that we could put some sort of like federal regulation saying, look, if you're going to call yourself a news network, you need to report the facts and the facts only. That's it.
Right. That's
You
it.
don't
No
put out,
opinions.
right, no
No
opinion, no
swing either
speculation,
way.
nothing. And if you do put an opinion, uh, there has to be like a little tag on the corner of this thing saying this portion is
Right.
opinion, like just like when you
Right.
go into reading the newspapers, it'll say it's an opinion editorial, right? Um, we should do something like that, and I feel like if you do that, and if people are watching the quote unquote news and they see that it says opinion 25 minutes out of the 30 of their show, at that point they're going to be
Right.
like, wait a minute, something's wrong here because they're not reporting just the straight facts, and that's what
Right.
they should be doing in the first place.
Right.
But then the question becomes is who's the one to decide what's true and what's not.
Right.
And I know people bring up that argument, but I mean, again, a fact is a fact. Hey, so and so punched so and so. Great. Well, what are the facts? Well, we know it's two males. One is 6'4", the other one's 5'3". What, right? Those are the facts. Not, well, this guy said this, and I think he reacted because he called his mother a name, right? Like that's you putting a spin. That's you putting a rationalization
Right.
as to why the reason happened, and that's one thing that I used to get into arguments with someone online. I remember I would tell them, look, I don't care about the reason, right? Like
Right.
for the most part, there's some discretion, but the vast majority of the times, I don't care about the reason because at the end of the day, if I punch you because I'm crazy, if I punch you in the face because I just don't like your shoes. If I punch you in the face because you looked at me the wrong, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I punched you in the face,
Right.
and that's what we should be looking at, right? So that's what then you should report. So and so got punched in the face. That's it. Leave it at that. There is no reasoning, right? Whatever the reason
Right.
is, we can then speculate, but then that goes into where, hey, you pop in. Oh, this is opinion. This portion is the opinion of what we just presented, right? I just think that that might be something worth looking because I actually started thinking that our laws are so far behind because of the internet. Um, and another idea that I have for a show in the future is coming up with a bill of rights for people, an updated version for like online, right? That how we
Right.
could like help curb a lot of the stuff that's going on because uh, unfortunately our government works a lot slower. And even though we've had the internet for what I mean, I started using the internet back in '94.
Right.
Um, Dude, it's been almost what 30 years. You know, it's like, come on. You know,
Yeah, it's
like
been some
why?
time.
Yeah, like you guys had time to start working these things through. I could get it through the '90s, early 2000s. We still didn't know, but between 2000, I would say to the mid 2010s to now, nothing's really changed. Like other than the problems have been exacerbated that we've already seen back then. So why
Right.
aren't we doing something to kind of like solve these issues? But
No doubt.
that's for a different story. Um, well, I mean, unless you have anything else on the topic of the Axios thing, I hope Axios will respond to me, right? I don't know if they will because even though I wrote to them and everything, it's from a Gmail account. They're gonna be like, Gmail account, this is a nobody, right? So I'm thinking maybe you and I need to get like our own domain email. That way I can start sending more emails questioning because I did ask for a chat. I
Right.
asked them if they would be willing to chat if they didn't want to answer me, and if not, then if they could just please answer me on the letter itself.
Right. Right.
But that's one of my ideas that I have for this channel. I don't want to present just the news. I want to challenge whoever has these ideas. So I will be reaching out to these companies, to these news networks, because then we can get basically straight from the horse's mouth, and that's the
Right.
idea that will set us apart from everyone else. So I don't know, man. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I mean, I feel like it's a locomotive moving, it's
Yeah,
a train that has picked up so much steam that like you have millions, if not billions of dollars that are like endorsing these ideas and these conglomerates, these media conglomerates. I mean, for you to really, take it to them or stick it to them if you wanted to say, it's just, I mean, ideas move so fast. So it's like, look at 4 years ago, we were completely shut down, and like 4 years later, we're back up and running. Now,
yeah,
is it all the way back and running? I don't know. I mean, you kind of just say, all right, well, this is where we're at. But the same thing for the media. I mean, they moved on like a year or two ago. They're on to like other things. If you
yeah,
bring up the COVID conversation again, it's like, oh my God, they knew where that went. It was a dead end fast, because the minute that you could stop reporting, whether how many people died in a day as a result of, you really didn't know because you didn't have the science there. Now
mhm,
you kind of burned yourself there because you lost a lot of trust of the people that actually did watch the news. Now they're not. Now how do you get people back to watching news? So you got to
yeah,
come up with just like bullshit, and then this is where we're at, like, dude, will I ever turn on the news again like I did back in 2020, 2021? Hell no. You're not going to get me down that route ever again.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like, you know, you kind of have to spin it the best way you can, and the best way they can. They know their audience. So, yeah, they're going to do their best to keep that audience as long as they can. But yeah, that's what I got to say about that, man. I'm a big facts guy, give me the facts because I'm always looking. I'll look across all the platforms. I'll look at Fox News. I'll look at CNN. I'll look at MSNBC. I'll look at all their websites and give me some information, man. Don't just give me a fluff piece. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Give me some names. Give me some ages. Give me some cities, like details. Like give me a timeline, you know?
Yeah.
And but you won't really get that like up until like weeks or if not months, if not years later, which is kind of like, all right, that's just the way it is. But you'll have a lot of news and media outlets that'll be quick to provide information, which fact check yourself, man. Like you can't you can afford to pay someone $1 million to read off a teleprompter, but you can't pay anybody to actually fact check your news. That's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Well, that's, I guess, a good way to end the show for today. We'll be back on Friday, and then we'll see what happens between now and then. And hopefully,
Come
we'll
on.
see you guys there. Yep. All right, everyone. Have a good day.